I've been wanting to do this video for a long time because the problem with our culture is that we are immersed in constant psychological operations and propaganda to the point where they've convinced us that there are certain things that we do that are not rights, but are rather privileges. And traveling down the public roadways is one of those things. So I'm going to give you this information from some Supreme Court and lower court and higher court cases, but you have to do your own due diligence. This is not me giving you any kind of legal advice. This is just reading some of these court cases, and they could be majority opinion cases or minority opinion cases. They could be the cases that have won, and they could be dissenting opinions from the justices who were more apt to side with justice. But you have to ask yourself, is traveling down the roadways or traveling, just walking through life, something that is a right, or is it something that is a privilege? A right that nobody gives you and nobody can take away from you, or a privilege that's granted by a supreme power like government? I'm going to read a couple of these, and then you make a determination on if this is something that you can apply to your life and how will you apply it. Because there are some pretty powerful words here that side on the level of liberty and against tyranny. And of course, we know that when you're talking about the Supreme Court, they can say things that are inconsistent. They can say things that are contradictory, and they often do. And they can use words that are interchanged with other words, like, is it driver or is it traveler? You'll see them in some of these cases, whether it's a dissenting opinion or it's the majority opinion, conflate the terms, even though Black's Law Dictionary lays out what actually the definitions for some of those words are. So this right here comes from Robertson versus Department of Public Works, and it says, complete freedom of the highways is so old and well established a blessing that we have forgotten the days of the robber barons and toll roads, and yet the highways may be completely monopolized. If through lack of interest the people submit, then they may look to see the most sacred of their liberties taken from them one by more or less rapid encroachment. Basically, the bottom line is, don't grow lukewarm with regard to your rights. If you have them and you want to keep them, then you have to exercise them. You have to practice them. You have to put them into action in your life, or like a muscle that you never use, it's going to atrophy. But once you start applying resistance to it, and that's what you will meet with in this empire of lies here, you will meet with resistance. Once you apply some resistance to it, then that muscle starts to grow. Once you exercise your rights and you act upon your rights, then you get more knowledgeable, you get less ignorant, and you become more powerful, because knowledge is power. And this next one right here comes from Virginia Supreme Court, Thompson versus Smith, and it says, the right, not the privilege, the right of a citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon by horse-drawn carriage, wagon, or automobile is not a mere privilege which may be permitted or prohibited at will. In other words, they're putting the right to travel in an automobile down the public highways on the same plane as your right, all the rights that are listed in the First Amendment. RAPPS, religion, assembly, petition, press, speech. They're putting it, traveling, on the same level as that. On the same level as protecting yourself with a personal protection device as outlined in the Second Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. On the same level of, you have the right to be secure in your person's houses, papers, and effects in the Fourth Amendment. But a common right, it's a common right, not a privilege, which he has under his right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Under this constitutional guarantee, one may therefore, under normal conditions, travel at his inclination along the public highways or in public places, and while conducting himself in an orderly and decent manner, neither interfering with nor disturbing another's rights, he will be protected not only in his person, but in his safe conduct. Protected. Oh, let's see. Whose job is it to protect and serve? Who constantly tries to convince us that that's what they're here for, is serving and protecting? And then who constantly fails us and demonstrates that it's not serving and protecting that they're doing, but it's harassing and collecting? Law enforcement. They're supposed to be protecting our safe conduct as we travel on the public highways, not interfering with us, and certainly not fining us. Also in Thompson versus Smith, it says the right of the citizen to travel upon the public highways. Notice it says the right to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon in the ordinary course of life and business is a common right which he has under the right to enjoy life and property, to acquire and possess property, and to pursue happiness and safety. It includes the right, not the privilege. Obama was constantly saying, hey, driving is a privilege. That's why you need a license. That's why you need a permission slip from the government. Well, if it's a right, you don't need a permission slip from anybody to do something that you have the perfect right to do under natural law. It's insane. It's insane to think that you would need a license to breathe, or a license to practice your religion, or a license to speak freely, or a license to assemble, or a license to drive. That's the level, that's the plane that these justices are putting the right to travel on. In so doing, to use the ordinary and usual conveyances of the day and under existing modes of travel includes the right to drive a horse-drawn carriage. See, they're saying drive. A horse-drawn carriage or wagon thereon, or to operate an automobile thereon for the usual and ordinary purpose of life and business. That's Thompson versus Smith. In this case right here, it says the right of the citizen to drive on a public street with freedom from police interference. Wouldn't that be a beautiful day? Is a fundamental constitutional right. And this right here, this is Chicago Motor Coach. A lot of people are familiar with this case. The use of the highways for the purpose of travel and transportation is not a mere privilege, but a common and fundamental right of which the public and the individual cannot be rightfully deprived. From Adams versus City of Pocatello, it says the right to operate a motor vehicle, an automobile, upon the public streets and highways is not a mere privilege. It is a right. I love that. It is a right of liberty, the enjoyment of which is protected by the guarantees of the federal and state constitutions. Now, whether these were ever overturned or not, the question is traveling in your own personal property down the public highways a right, or is it a privilege granted to you by the fiction called government? Government is that great fiction by which everyone seeks to live at the expense of everyone else. I love this also from Chicago Motor Coach. This says it all. No state government entity has the power to allow or deny passage on the highways, byways, nor waterways, transporting his vehicles and personal property for either recreation or business, but by being subject only to local regulation, i.e. safety, caution, traffic lights, speed limits. Everybody wants to do that. Everybody who's sane, who's rational, and who wants to care for other people and the space that they occupy in the public roadways with you. Everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants to be cautious. Everyone, if one person is going to obey the traffic lights and some people aren't, then it would be mayhem. And then there's discretion there. What if you got off of work at 2:30 in the morning and there's nobody around in sight? Why would you have to travel? I mean, why would you have to stop at that stop sign or that street light that gets stuck on red for 5 minutes while nobody else is driving on the highways? Why can't you exercise your discretion and go, look, I looked left, right, left again. There's nobody around. I'm going to go through this. And then the cop comes and pulls you over. What? There was no violation of anybody's safety or anybody's freedom on the public highways when you went through that stoplight or that stop sign safely at 2:30 in the morning. And then they say, travel is not a privilege requiring licensing, vehicle registration, or forced insurances. You can't even get any more clear than that. In Wingfield versus Fielder, the court makes it clear that a license relates to qualifications to engage in profession, business, trade, or calling. Thus, when merely traveling without compensation or profit, and that's the key. That's the difference between traveling and driving. A driver is doing it for compensation. A traveler is doing it for his own personal business. Outside of business, enterprise, or adventure, with the corporate state, no license is required of the natural individual traveling for personal business, pleasure, and transportation. That's Wingfield versus Fielder. And this right here from Barbarian versus Lucier, the use of the automobile as a necessary adjunct to the earning of a livelihood in modern life requires us, in the interest of realism, to conclude that the right to use an automobile on the public highways partakes of the nature of a liberty within the meaning of the constitutional guarantees. They're basically saying, hey, this might as well just be in the Constitution. That's how we view it. This is a natural, fundamental, unalienable right. And I'll just read one more. People versus Horton. The right of the citizen to drive. See, they use this interchangeably, driving and traveling, on the public street with freedom from police interference unless he is engaged in suspicious conduct associated in some manner with criminality, is a fundamental constitutional right which must be protected by the courts. I will leave the link to everything that I just read here, and there's even more. I just didn't want to make this video super long, but I'll leave the link to all of these cases in the description below. Check them out. Do your own due diligence. This isn't me telling you what you should or shouldn't do. This is just interesting stuff that kind of testifies to the fact that taking your property, your personal property on the public highways and byways and waterways, is a right according to the courts and not a privilege. If you guys enjoy these videos, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. Don't forget to subscribe to my private email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. And if you like this video, maybe you like some of my others. I have some incredible playlists that you want to check out. And you let me know in the comment section below if it's something that's valuable to you, and I'll keep on doing them. I appreciate you. And remember, freedom is not free. It has a price, and that's eternal vigilance. And indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. Freedom is paramount, and freedom is dangerous. The only thing more dangerous is not having it.